videos of great rabbis over here. Now, we're not speaking about a rabbi here. It marks, let's say, the passing of Eli Cohen, Hashem Yikam Damo, here on Tet Zayin Iyar, possibly one of the most famous people here in Israeli history, definitely with regards to the last 100 years, without a doubt. Now, he was murdered, or he was publicly hanged on the 18th of May in the year 1965. We're talking about 60 years ago here from time of recording. He was actually born in the year 1924 on the 6th of December, to be precise. So he was about nearly 41 years of age at a time he lost his life in most brutal fashion. He was an Egyptian-born Israeli spy. He is best known, let's just say, for his espionage work in Syria between the years 1961 to 1965, where he developed close relationships, let's just say, with various Syrian political and military hierarchy. Now, he's definitely very famous. Many of the calendars marking the, let's just say, the passings of great rabbis or great people, they would feature Eli Cohen inside the calendars respectively. Over here we're going to explore some of the highlights of his life. He was executed at the end by hanging, and his wife's name was Nadia Majalad. I think they got married, if I'm not mistaken, in the year 1959. They would go on to have 3 children, and let's explore a few of the highlights of his biography over there. It's obviously he was working in a very risky obviously business, let's just say, of itself, and he was very, very successful initially, and he obviously, I think he was working for the Mossad, so he would see a sense, let's say, of impending danger, let's just say, to the Mossad in the year 1964. It would be a year later, let's just say, his true allegiance was uncovered by, let's say, Syrian intelligence, and he was convicted by the Syrian government under pre-war martial law. He was sentenced to death and was publicly hanged in Damascus in May 1965. The incident contributed to the sharp escalation of hostilities between Israel and Syria just before the 1967 Arab-Israel War. Obviously, he's very, very high regarded in Israel itself, and there's various streets, roads named after him. Let's explore his early life now. That was just a short synopsis. Okay, he was born in Egypt, in the area of Alexandria, to a family of Mizrahi Jews over there. It's reported that his father had immigrated from Aleppo, Syria, naturally, or Khalab, you could say, to the Ottoman Empire in 1914. Remember, we've spoken all about, let's say, the rabbis of these different vicinities in of itself at that point in time. He was very deeply committed to Judaism, very passionate. So Cohen, his father, had planned in his youth to become a rabbi. That was his dream, was to become a rabbi. And I think there was guidance of, I think, Rabbi Moise Ventura, who he lived between the years 1893 to 1978. He happened to be actually the chief rabbi Alexandria at that stage in time. Hopefully we will speak about him at a later stage. The city's yeshiva had closed down at that point in time, and this would actually lead him to receive higher education, let's just say, in Cairo University. I don't know if that entailed a Jewish or a rabbinic education or not, but that means to be seen. But he was a staunch Zionist, and he helped, let's just say, Israel evacuate the Egyptian Jewish community by assisting Israeli intelligence throughout Egypt. He was fluent in 5 languages, in Arabic, in Hebrew, in English, in French and Spanish. Remember, I think there were school systems at that point in time all over, especially the Middle Eastern countries, Mizrahi countries, which advocated, let's just say, learning languages. Especially, I think there was a French system, so a school system at that point in time. So people would have been literate in other languages because of that, potentially. Now, at the onset of the Jewish exodus, let's just say, from the Muslim world, this obviously began concurrently with the Arab-Israel conflict. Eli Cohen's parents and 3 brothers would immigrate to Israel, I think in the year 1949 it was. But he would stay behind to complete his degree and also to help consolidate, let's just say, Zionistic efforts among Egypt's Jewish community at that point in time. Now, it was prior to the 1952 Egyptian Revolution. He was arrested and interrogated by Egyptian authorities who were, let's just say, becoming suspicious of his activities at that point in time. Nonetheless, he would continue to engage in various Israeli covert efforts in Egypt throughout the 1950s. I think it was at that point in time the Egyptian government could never prove, let's just say, his involvement in Operation Goshen, by which obviously at that point in time the Israeli government smuggled a significant number of Egypt's Jews out of the country and then would resettle them in Israel. Now Eli Cohen is also said to have aided Egyptian Jewish community who were taking part in which would become known as, let's say, the Lavon, something called the Lavon affair. We haven't, maybe I'd recommend everyone to research on that. By the way, when I say to research all these things, obviously try and do it through an Israeli lens and everything else. You never know what some other countries might make up and distort like the true facts that actually happen. So I would recommend everyone to look at like more of the Israeli books of what actually occurred. So he would become known as a Lavon affair. What was that? By which Israel sought to sabotage Egypt's relationship at that point in time with the Western world. 2 members of the spy ring were caught and then they were sentenced to death, but the Egyptian government was unable, let's say, to find a link between Eli Cohen and let's just say the perpetrators over here. Remember, I'm just reading this from Wikipedia at the moment, so please, anyone in the comment section, if you know anything else, please let me know. Now, immigration from Egypt. I think by the time of December 1956, just after the Suez Crisis, he was forced to leave Egypt. His immigration to Israel was facilitated by the Jewish Agency. Remember, we visited on this channel all places in Israel, including the Jewish Agency quite recently. And in 1959, he would marry Nadia Majald. I think she was actually born in the year 1935, respectively. She was actually an Iraqi-born Jew with whom he would have 3 children. Their names were Sophia or Irit, and Shai. And I think the Majalad family, if I'm not mistaken, might have been a rabbinic family, because I think there was a famous rabbi in Iraq in the very early 1900s of the family named Majalad. So I'm not too sure if that was a relative or not, but that definitely was a rabbi we covered in this series. They would eventually settle down in the area of Bat Yam in Israel. Through this marriage, Eli Cohen became the brother-in-law of Israeli author Sami Michael. Very interesting enough. So if anyone knows any information on him, I'll appreciate. Okay, now his career. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, recruited him in 1957 and placed him in military intelligence, where he became a counter-intelligence analyst and a translator over here. Remember, I think he was fluent in various languages. His work bored him and he attempted to join the Mossad, but he was offended when the Mossad rejected him and he resigned from the military counterintelligence. For the next 2 years, he worked as filing clerk in a Tel Aviv insurance office over here. Now, finally, there'll be the enlistment with the Mossad over here. What was this? The Mossad recruited Eli Cohen after Director General, his name was Meir Amit, looking for an intelligence officer to infiltrate the Syrian government, came across his name. And while looking through the agency's files of rejected candidates, after none of the current candidates seemed suitable for the job, for 2 weeks, Eli Cohen was put under surveillance and was judged suitable for recruiting and training. Eli Cohen was then informed that Mossad had decided to recruit him, and he would undergo an intense 6-month course at the Mossad training school. His graduate report stated that he had all the qualities needed to become a Katsa field agent. So now he's going to do an espionage in Syria. Eli Cohen was then given, let's say, a false identity as a Syrian businessman who was returning to the country after living in Argentina. To establish his cover, Eli Cohen would move to Buenos Aires, I believe in the year 1961, in Argentina naturally. In Buenos Aires, he moved among the Arab community, letting it be known he had large amounts of money to put at the disposal of the Syrian Ba'ath Party. At this time, the Ba'ath Party was illegal in Syria, but the party anyway seized power in the year 1963. Eli Cohen would then go on to move to Damascus, I think in February 1962, under the name Elias Kamel Armin Thabert. I think this was an Arabic name over here. Remember, if anyone has any other information on this, or you feel I'm quoting the wrong information here because I'm reading this off Wikipedia, please let me know. And he would live in Al-Mahdi ibn Barakah Street, I think of the Abu Ramana neighborhood. It was an area, I believe, that, let's say, contained various embassies and government buildings, including the Air Force Intelligence Directorate. Now, Mossad, at that point in time, had carefully planned the tactics that he was to use in building relationships with high-ranking Syrian politicians, military officials, influential business public figures, and let's say, diplomatic community, respectively. Now, Eli Cohen continued, let's just say, his social life as he had in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. He would spend time, let's say, in cafes, listening to political gossip. He also had, at that point in time, he also held parties at his home for high-placed Syrian ministers, businessmen, and others. At these parties, Eli Cohen dispensed free-flowing liquor and other things at that point in time, and highly placed officials would openly discuss their work and army plans. Eli Cohen would, this is reported over in Wikipedia, would pretend to be drunk to encourage such conversations, to which he paid close attention. He would lend money to government officials, this was reported over here on Wikipedia, and many came to him for advice. Eli Cohen was ingrained in, let's say, the Syrian elite, that he was on the shortlist for Deputy Minister of the Defense right before his arrest. Now, he provided extensive amounts and a wide range of intelligence data for the Israeli army between 61 to 65. He sent intelligence to Israeli by radio, different letters, and in person, he would travel to Israel 3 times. I think his, let's just say, most notably, was a tour of the Golan Heights in which he collected intelligence of Syrian fortifications there. It's unconfirmed, but he would collect intelligence of Syrian fortifications there. According to, I think, widely believed story, he would feign sympathy for the soldiers exposed to the sun and had trees planted at every position, placed to provide, let's just say, shade. The IDF were, let's say, have used the trees as targeting marketers during the Six-Day War, which enabled Israel to capture the Golan Heights in 2 days. You can see a lot of the work he did led to a lot of the miracles in the Six-Day War, respectively. So you can see what a huge role he plays in recent Israeli history just by his undertakings. Eli Cohen made repeated visits to the southern frontier zone, providing photographs, sketches, let's say, of various positions of Syria held. He also learned of a secret plan to create 3 successful lines of bunkers and mortars. The IDF would otherwise have expected to encounter only a single line. Eli Cohen was able to find out, let's say, Syrians planned to divert the Jordan River headquarters in an attempt to deprive Israel of water resources. So you can see how much he was saving the country of Israel, providing information, let's just say, to Israeli forces that enabled them to destroy the equipment prepared for the task during the War of Water. It's also claimed at that point in time that the intelligence that Eli Cohen gathered before his arrest was an important factor in Israel's success in the Six-Day War. So you can see the hakarat hatov, the debt of gratitude, the country should have in of itself in his legacy. Although some intelligence experts may have argued that the information he provided about Golan Heights fortifications was also readily available from ground and aerial reconnaissance, he provided it, which is interesting enough. Now, it's reported over, I think there was a Newsweek 2018 article published by Ronen Bergman. I think part of his book called Rise and Kill First. He says that Eli Cohen located Alios Bruna, who happened to be a former Nazi official and a perpetrator suspected of living in the area, and relayed information to an Israeli intelligence until that subsequently sent bombs to Bruna, causing him to lose an eye or finger of his left hand in 1980. This was reported over in this article. I would recommend everyone to look into this. Now, following the 1963 Syrian coup d'etat, who was a newly appointed Syrian intelligence colonel, Ahmed Suidani, I don't think he liked Eli Cohen and did not trust people close to the Second Syrian Republic. Eli Cohen expressed a fear of discovery to the Mossad on his last secret visit to Israel in November 1964, and he stated they wished to terminate his assignment in Syria. The purposes of that visit were to pass on intelligence and to enable, to witness the birth of his 3rd child he wanted. Despite this, However, Israeli intelligence asked him to return to Syria one more time. Before leaving, Eli Cohen assured his wife it will be his last trip before he would return home. Now, in January 1965, Syrian officials who used Soviet-made tracking equipment and were assisted by Soviet experts increased their efforts to find a high-level spy. They observed, let's just say, at that point in time, they would go on to observe a period of radio silence in the hope that any illegal transmission could be identified. They successfully detected radio transmissions and were able to triangulate the transmitter. Syrian security services led by Sudani broke into Cohen's apartment on 24th of January and claimed to have caught him in the middle of transmission to Israel. Now, a horror of what actually occurred was absolutely horrific afterwards and really shook Israel to the core. Eli Cohen, let's just say, was discovered in espionage by a military tribunal and was sentenced to death under martial law. He had been repeatedly interrogated and tortured. See what the poor man suffered over there. Israel staged an international campaign for clemency, hoping to persuade Syria not to execute him. At that point in time, I think the foreign minister of Israel was Golda Meir. She led a campaign urging Damascus to consider the consequences if, God forbid, they would hang him, which they ended up doing. There was diplomats, prime ministers, parliamentarians, and Pope Paul VI, I think, tried to intercede. I think Meir even appealed to the Soviet Union. The governments of Belgium, Canada, and France tried to persuade the Syrian government to commute, let's just say, the death sentence over here. But the Syrians cruelly refused. Nadia Cohen attempted to appeal for clemency at the Syrian embassy in Paris, but was turned away. Eli Cohen wrote in his final letter on 15th of May 1965, "I am begging you, my dear Nadia, not to spend your time in weeping about something already past. Concentrate on yourself, looking forward for a better future." So he's looking at the future, the positives over here, and giving hope not just to Nadia, but the whole of Israel at the same time. And what a hero he happened to be over here. He was hanged, remember here, as a hero over here for Israel, all the work that he did. Eli Cohen was, Hashem Yikam Damo, was publicly hanged in the Martyrs Square in Damascus on the 18th of in the 18th of May in the year 1965. The execution was recorded on 35mm film. On the day of his execution, his last wish was to see a rabbi, was respected by the prison authorities. And Rabbi Nissim Indio, the chief rabbi of Syria, accompanied him in the truck. He was allowed to write a final letter to his wife. Over here. Syria refused to return Eli Cohen's body to his family in Israel, and his wife Nadia sent a letter to Amin al-Hafiz in November 1965, asking his forgiveness for Eli Cohen's actions and requesting his remains. Obviously, she wants to get the body back. In February 2007, Turkey offered to act as a mediator for the return. And now the Monthir Osili, the former bureau chief of Hafez al-Assad, claimed in August 2008 that the Syrians had buried him 3 times to stop the remains from being taken back to Israel by a special operation. Now we just see over here how important it is to bury the dead, and we have our bodies back in general in Jewish law over here. This is just another proof over here. Syrian authorities have repeatedly denied family requests for the remains. Eli Cohen's brothers, Abraham and Morris, led the campaign to return his remains. Morris died in 2006, and Nadia now leads it. I'm not too sure Nadia's status in modern day in 2025. I'm not too sure when this article was written. And then 2016, a Syrian group calling itself Syrian Art Treasurers posted a video reported over on Facebook showing Eli Cohen's body after his execution. No film or video was previously known to exist of the execution. The press announced on 5th of July 2018 that Eli Cohen's wristwatch had been retrieved from Syria. His widow mentioned that the watch was up for sale months earlier, and the Mossad managed to capture it. The Mossad director, Yossi Cohen, this was reported at Wikipedia, presented it to Eli Cohen's family in a ceremony, and it's currently on display at Mossad headquarters. Now, there's a legacy. Eli Cohen became a national hero, as we say. Remember, Eli Cohen's last act was to actually meet the chief rabbi of Syria, which just showed the greatness and the respect he had for rabbis and for the Torah in of itself. Even when he was about to be hanged, that was the fourth thing on his mind. Now, Eli Cohen became a national hero in Israel, and many streets and neighborhoods have been named after him. At the point, I think, in time, the Prime Minister Menachem Begin and Defense Minister Ezra Weizmann and the Chief of Staff Mordechai Gur and several Mossad operatives all attended his son's bar mitzvah in 1977. There's a memorial stone was erected to Eli Cohen H'YD's memory in the Garden of Missing Soldiers in Mount Herzl in Jerusalem. And I think there was also a man of John Shea played Eli Cohen in a television film, I think The Impossible Spy, that was in 1987. And Sacha Baron Cohen, also known as Ali G, played him in a Netflix miniseries, The Spy, in 2019. There's also an Israeli village, Eliad, in the Golan Heights, is named after him over here. So he was murdered on this week here in ER. To be precise, as we stated on the outset, it was the date was a Tet Zayin ER. So just remember, he was a hero in Jewish history of the Jewish people. In the 6-Day War, the miracles came. He was, let's just say, definitely one of the heroes of the 6-Day War, although he wasn't alive at that point in time. The safety of Israel, he was a hero in the fact that the letter he wrote to his wife before he suffered the execution he did, the respect he had for rabbis also, like candles in his memory. Now friends, we're a community here. We're learning about the great rabbis of yesteryear, great Jewish personalities of yesteryear. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel now. We're nearing 7,000 subscribers already. If you feel anyone's interested in watching these videos, share the videos to other people. Also, wishing you well over here from the city of Bet Shemesh. Take care.